Trade chatter. Dallas Stars are obviously going to have a lot of money at the trade deadline and the first week of March. With Tyler taking on the LTIR more than likely. They still haven't put him on LTIR, by the way. It's just injury reserve. I think they're waiting closer till the deadline to do it. It's weird, but they're still saving money by having him on IR anyway. So it's complicated, but they're going to do it. He's still 5-6 months away, which is tough.
Yeah, it's a tough surgery.
It's going slower, and it's the second one, obviously same hip, so not ideal. But trade chatter, there's been a lot of trade chatter over the last week. Someone wrote an article, I can't remember who, so sorry about that. But Brock Nelson is being eyed by Jim Nill, the GM of the Dallas Stars, and we've already said Brock Nelson, he fits the mold for Jim Nill, the UFA at the end of the summer, and he's a big physical power forward that you can throw on the power play, you can throw him on penalty kill, you can do all the sorts of things and just add another center depth to the lines, and I think it'd be a good fit. I obviously would like something with more years and maybe more upside, but he scored, I think, 27 or 30 goals over the last 3 years. This year he's a little bit slower, and the Islanders kind of stink, so I'm pointing it towards that. But he scores a lot, and that's something that we've been missing. So Brock Nelson of the Stars, what do you think?
Like we said in the last episode when we were talking trade candidates, I can see that I can see this move being a Dallas Stars move. Like this is every single candidate that's being discussed around the media with Dallas. They're like, yeah, this one makes sense. Now it's going to be a race to him because we're not the only team interested. Obviously, he's a very good player. But based on what you'd have to give up, I'm very for this type of move. I wish we could make the call. Obviously, we can't, but it'd be a very nice piece to add to our team, and I think he would have no trouble falling in Peter DeBoer's lineup.
No, absolutely not. And I think that's more of a prospect. You don't have to give up necessarily a high draft pick for Brock Nelson, maybe a third rounder or a fourth rounder plus a prospect like Antonio Stranges or something else from Texas Stars. Forward depth in the AHL is not necessarily great for the Dallas Stars. There's a couple of guys that they're interested in, but nothing's popping out like Rupe Hintz or Jason Robertson or Logan Stankov and Maverick Bork. We don't have that anymore. They're all up now, which is a good thing. It's what you like to see, but you also have a more of a barren AHL roster outside of Liam Bichel, who's apparently untouchable. So you wouldn't have to give up too much, and you're not too worried about your forward depth at the AHL level. So you could give up something like that in a mid-round draft pick and get that done, just like they did with Chris Tanev last year. Another name that popped up on the radar this week, Jeff Merrick. He has a daily podcast called The Sheet. Asked the question, would the Stars be interested in Seth Jones? Seth Jones came from Dallas. He's an Arlington boy. He's a Dallas kid. The Stars were very interested in 2021 when he was made available. They didn't get him, obviously. Chicago did and signed him to a giant contract. I think it's $9.5 million. Seth Jones to Dallas, what do you think?
I think there's mutual interest. I think Seth Jones would love to play for this Dallas team. Not the biggest fan of it, just not from the player standpoint, solely from the how are you going to get him and how does him on your team with that contract affect the domino effect of what you want to do with your roster. I'm good with not having him, but also I have to concede he'd be better than what we have right now. I just don't know if that's the answer long term. What do you think?
Yeah, Seth Jones, he would slide into your second D pairing. Labushkin would go to the third D pairing, which would be good. Like you have better depth there. Your right D is fairly clean. Like it's better than what it was. Matt Dumba has not lived up to the contract or what we thought he was going to be in a Dallas Stars uniform. We thought he was going to be an enforcer. We thought he was going to add on to the offensive side of the puck, and he just has done neither this year. He's had like 2 or 3 like good hits. And you're like, there's the Dumba that I know. He doesn't throw him every game. He's getting healthy scratch now. Brendan Smith is in. Brendan Smith's been pretty good this year, but he's not an elite level defenseman. He's a good defenseman. He is your third pairing guy, whatever. To get Seth Jones, you'd have to trade Matt Dumba either to Chicago or somewhere else, and that's a 3-year, $4 million cap hit. So you're getting it maybe $6 million back with Seth Jones, and he would be better than Matt Dumba. He would play more than Matt Dumba has played this year, and for that it would be better. But the adding $6 million to your cap hit when you got to sign Wyatt Johnson this offseason, you got Robo coming up in a year, you got Harley coming up in a year, and then after that year, you got another year, and you got Stankoven and Bork coming up. It's like it gets really tough with the cap, and the cap is going up for sure. But $9.5 million cap hit, even with trading Dumba, is not ideal for
No,
what you
not
want to do
really.
team building wise. And I don't even know if Seth Jones is a win the cup this year type of move either. And that's the other issue. Like you need to make a move that is going to help you win a cup or at least advance to the cup this year. Been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Get over the hump. What is your get over the hump trade piece? And I don't think it is Seth Jones.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same wavelength on this. It's just like I'm not gonna sacrifice that much to only improve by so little.
Right. It's
So
tough. Seth Jones is awesome. He's a Dallas kid. It'd be cool to have a Dallas kid in a Dallas Stars uniform, but not for $9.5 million. And
yeah,
I don't think
it's got nothing to do with the player. It's just the contract he carries. It's not our fault. He's on that contract. So
no, I'm happy that he's making $9.5 million. Good for him. He's 30 years old. He's got 5 more years left on the deal. Good for him, but not for me. And lastly, on trade chatter, JT Miller obviously almost got traded to the New York Rangers the other night. He was going to be a healthy scratch, and then all of a sudden, deal falls through. He plays that game. JT Miller is the most coveted piece on the market. He's Carolina and the Rangers are still both in on him. I think Dallas would be in on him, but aren't ready to pull the trigger on that just yet because it seems like Vancouver is asking for a top six forward. And I feel like Dallas is not willing to give up a top six forward or even Bork or Stankoven or Bischel. They're going to want one of those guys to come back in the trade. And JT Miller's under contract. He's really good. He'd fit right in on the power play. He's a goal scorer. I think he'd fit really well in Dallas. And I think he would waive his no move clause for Dallas because it is a cup contender. But I don't want to move any of those three pieces. I don't want to move Bischel, Bork, or Stankoven. I'm good on keeping those guys and keeping the run going a little bit longer.
yeah, like I forget how young Stank is, like
Yeah,
just in life, and I know he's not. I know his name's not entering the stat sheet that much, but I'm telling you, like the more he progresses in his career, like you trade him now, it's you're. And then with JT, it's like if there was a coach who could handle him and the baggage he comes with, it's our coach.
it
So,
is.
um, here in Houston, we had the same thing with Stephon Diggs. On a playoff team, they're actually Buffalo has a chance to go to the Super Bowl now without him, but um, everyone was just kind of out on him. Comes into Houston, and I can attest because I was in the building. He his energy changed. I think he had as much fun playing football as he ever had. And you put him in this lineup, and just JT, his ability on the power play alone would move Godspeed for this team. But to give up what apparently they're asking, and there's a little bit of tug and pull going on with that. Will they get what he will they get what they want? Hell no, in my opinion.
No,
But it's going to be a race, and I don't think every buyer that wants him is in the same position that we're in. So it's kind of like they rip the cord and they do a big trade, and someone has to leave. I would contemplate, like I would find ways to say yes, this was worth it. But if we don't, I'll find ways to say, man, you're going to be thanking us for keeping these players that we have. So
they're asking a
I
first round pick too. I think they're asking for a pick and a top six forward. They're not going to get what they want. They don't have any leverage in this situation. Apparently, Pedersen and him hate each other. You can't have both of them on the team. You have to get rid of one of them. Whether he stays through the trade deadline and leaves in the summertime, that's another thing. I think you get a way better haul in the summertime because people are willing to do that for a full reset in the offseason. He shows up and then he gets integrated into the team that way. But I think what you said about DeBoer is really important about how he'd be able to come into this locker room and be just another guy. He'd be just a power play guy and he'd be on top two lines and be goal scoring opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's just DeBoer. I think it's the leadership that you have in the room. You have Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene, Jamie Benn. Like you've got three dudes that have been in the league forever. And Sagan's won a cup. They obviously have come close to getting to the cup and winning a cup in the last 5 years. You've got the leadership in the locker room outside of the coach to be able to handle certain personalities and differences and all that kind of stuff. Like Dumba, he was a very controversial pickup in the offseason. The guys love Dumba. He just hasn't performed up to the level that we thought he was going to have. And giving him a bigger contract for multiple years was a miss. But you have misses in free agency. You have misses in trades. I think JT Miller would be a hit. However, what do you have to give up in order to get him? I would give up a first round pick and few prospects. Like I would do that all day long. But I'm not the GM. I'm not in charge of it. And I'm just not giving up any of my NHL talent. And
No.
I think that's the holdup right now. The Rangers probably didn't do it because they didn't want to give up any of their NHL talent that they have, like unless they were going to move Chris Kreider, but maybe they said no to that. And then Carolina, I was talking to my buddy. He's a Carolina fan. I was talking to him before the game the other night, and he's like, I would love JT Miller, but we don't have any future right now. Like we don't have an AHL. Like we can't give up that along with first round picks and get JT Miller. Like that doesn't necessarily win you the cup. I think JT Miller could push the Stars over to where they were last year with Joe Pavelski in the last few years, where offense was just easy. I think adding JT Miller to the mix, that would make offense a lot easier. I'm not saying he's Joe Pavelski, but making offense easier would be huge for the Stars in getting JT Miller. But it's not going to happen this month. It's probably not going to happen next month. They're going to hold on to him until March, I would believe.
Yeah, once the other teams like this fire sale that's supposed to happen in Pittsburgh, once these other fire sales start happening, I think that's when the
That's when the floodgates open.
it's the floodgates open, and if we can get them for the right price, which I'm kind of confident like we can, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be tough, but I think we could do it. And I think Jim Nill, I mean, he's won GM of the year 2 years in a row now. He's always made the right move at the trade deadline that's made the team better. Dadonov and Domi 2 years ago, that got him to the Western Conference Finals, fell short, obviously, against Vegas. And then last year, you get Chris Tanev, shore up the back end, don't have to play Hakanpää anymore, even though he was hurt. But like doing that trade made the team exponentially better. Doing 2 trades, I think, is what's going to happen. I think you're going to get a forward, and I think you're going to get a defenseman. I think they're going to do that.
You kind of need it.
Yeah, and so that makes your star like headhunting easier or harder, rather. Like you don't get to go get one star, and if you need both things, you got to go get 2 guys that are going to be on your third or fourth line or your second or third D pairing, and that would be okay because that would make the team deeper and better. And then you get Seguin back in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden the offense is easy again, whatever. But I think a star is needed more so than more depth. I think we have plenty of depth. So star hunting is what I would like to do for the Dallas Stars. But I'm not the GM. I'm not in the locker room all the time. I'm in there after the games. I don't know anything. I talked to 3 players a night after a game and DeBoer and everything. You don't get anything out of that. And you see Jim Nill. Jim Nill was on the phone after the Carolina game. Don't know who he was talking to, but he was on the phone. I saw him in the tunnels afterwards. So maybe he was making some calls. Who's to say?
Can only wish.
I hope so. But